Ciao.
This episode of In a Few Minutes is sponsored by BetterHelp, online counseling that's there for you. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health at betterhelp.com/afew.
Filigree copper-plating, cheek-by jowl with tumbling hexagonal milled edges, rubbing gently against the terse leather of beautifully balanced bank books. Sorry.
Okay. Where?
Here.
Okay. Well, cool. Then it's good for me to be here, too. Bryan Chaffin is here with us, everybody. He is editor-in-chief of the Mac Observer. Not doing the whole TV show thing today. That took time. That took time last time.
Did we do a TV show last time?
Oh my God. Were you even here for the show that we did? Yes. Because remember I introduced you as the guy who would underline the good parts of the things and whatever.
Oh, yes.
See, there you go.
Yes. I remember now. It's all coming back.
That's why I take all of that extra time. So
and
people
I'm a
can go.
Too. So I've got no excuse.
No, there you go. I don't know what that means. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, of course I know what it means. I'm talking about the fact that never mind. I'm not going to make that joke. Bryan Chaffin is here, as I say. Normally what we do, generally speaking, we start Mondays off with It's News to whomever. So this week it would be It's News to Bryan. But we're not starting off the week that way because Apple threw us a curveball last week and did its earnings report on Thursday, which means I talked about it on macOS Ken on Friday, which means as Bryan and I record this, I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody about that. And so we're talking about that instead. Yeah, I know. Record quarter for everything.
Record September quarter.
Record September. Record September quarter for everything. Record quarter for some things. I want to say the Mac, and I can't remember what else. Services. That was the other thing. It was absolute record quarter services. For records in every geography. Yeah. Just a horribly, horribly disappointing quarter for Apple.
Okay. You're pushing my buttons.
I'm trying to.
You're pushing my buttons because
I'm trying to.
When Wall Street is the entity that gives a company value, Wall Street gets to set its rules for how they're going to establish that value. Yeah. And when Wall Street says Apple is worth X amount because we expect Apple to do Y amount of business. Yeah. When Apple does less than Y amount, it is in fact seen as disappointing to Wall Street. It doesn't make the quarter itself a failure. It doesn't make Apple a failure. It doesn't mean that Apple didn't do amazing things, but it wasn't within the scope and realm of what Wall Street was expecting. So Wall Street sees it as disappointing. That is rational. It is okay. And it is reality.
No, see, I would disagree with you on that last part.
No, it is financial reality.
Well, okay. See, you put a modifier on there, and now we can go ahead and start talking again.
Whatevs.
Well, you said no. I mean, that's a serious thing, though, because here's the thing: if you listen to that call, and by the way, for people who don't know, I don't have it. I should have had it in front of me. I did the whole thing yesterday. First of all, I get a bone to pick with Barron's. Because Barron's had actually run a thing on Wednesday saying, here's what we're expecting from Apple. And one of the things they said was that Wall Street was looking for earnings per share of 73 cents. And I thought to myself, well, that seems low. But it's right there.
$1.24.
But it's right there in Barron's, so I'm not going to worry about it. They went back later to see if they had corrected that. They had not. And yet, yes, everybody said it was $1.24. Everybody but Barron's, which, of course, unfortunately, is the trap that I fell into when I was talking about it on Thursday's show. It's fine because I did like a minute and a half of. I'm not exactly apologizing, but I kind of am. So Apple missed on revenue. Wall Street had expected 84.8 billion. Apple delivered 83.4. Wall Street missed on iPhone revenue. Apple had missed on iPhone revenue. Wall Street expected 41.5 billion. Apple delivered 38.9. Technically, they missed on the Mac, but they missed by almost nothing. I want to say Wall Street was expecting 9.23 billion. Apple delivered 9.18. They actually beat on the iPad. Wall Street was expecting $7.2 billion in revenue from iPad. Apple delivered 8.25. Wearables, home and accessories. The Street was expecting 9.3 billion. Apple delivered 8.8. Services, they crushed it. Wall Street expected $17.6 billion and Apple delivered 18.3. Here's the thing. I don't understand, and I know it's the game, and I actually talked about this on Friday's Mac OS Can. Everybody's got a job to do. These are unprecedented times. People try to do their job during unprecedented times. The problem is, I don't know if you remember, but 10 years ago, maybe even 8 years ago, maybe even as recently as 6 years ago, Apple would deliver guidance. And they'd be like, right, so here's how much. And Wall Street would say, yeah, but it's Apple, so we're going to up that by like 25%.
Yeah.
Apple would deliver guidance, and Wall Street would say, yeah, but you don't understand, you're Apple. And so they would ratchet it up more. And then when Apple would come out and say, hey, look, we did better than we expected, Wall Street would come back and say, yeah, but you didn't do better than we expected. And so they would still be punished for, a week or two, maybe. And then the shares would come back up to normal. I don't understand what Wall Street was basing its expectations on this time, especially when for the past 2 quarterly calls, Apple CFO Luca Maestri, Apple CEO Tim Cook have said, yeah, the components thing is not a joke. We've been able to, source our stuff and do our things, but there is still COVID and there are these supply constraints that are, getting to be a bit more serious. So we're not going to offer guidance. And this time around, Wall Street said, yeah, but you're Apple. And so they set guidance that was beyond record because Apple turned in numbers that were beyond record. And then the next day, shares got punished. Actually, after hours trading, while the call was happening, shares got punished.
Pushing my buttons again, man. The value is established by the people paying the money. So when the people who are paying the money, and I'm talking about investors,
right?
And I'm an Apple.
Are you talking about investors? Or are you talking about traders, though?
It doesn't matter.
Oh no, it does matter because I think
it doesn't matter.
Okay, well, yelling is actually going to make it much better.
The price of the stock is being set by both traders and investors. Mm-hmm. The people who are putting the money into the stock market get to decide what something is worth. They also get to decide what to expect. Now, that may not have any bearing on what a company actually does, but they still get to decide those things. And if a company exceeds those expectations, they get to adjust their value upwards. And if the company fails to meet those expectations, they get to adjust their value downwards. There's no objective world here in which Apple is supposedly worth anything, right? There's no fair, right? It's everybody's playing by their own sort of different kinds of rules. But in this particular case, the people who are paying the money are the people who get to establish their own rules. This is just a pet peeve. This is not your fault, but this is a huge pet peeve of mine.
I'm glad to hear it's not my fault, but you are yelling at me.
Technically, I was raising my voice.
Oh well, okay. Okay. That's a difference in degrees. See, I'm the guy listening, so I think I actually get to decide whether you're yelling or raising your voice.
No, that's. First of all, I see what you did there.
Thank you.
Second of all, well played. And third of all, you make a great point. Thank you for acknowledging mine.
How have the last 18 months treated you? If you said fine, cool. And if that's true, even better. If, on the other hand, the world around you has taken a toll, there is help out there. BetterHelp, sponsor of today's show. Let's say you'd like somebody to talk to, a professional who can help you achieve your goals, maybe deal with loss or anxiety. Answer a few questions and BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. Where? Well, they're on your phone or your tablet or your computer, so wherever you need them. You and your therapist connect in a safe and private online environment. That means you can find somebody who deals with your particular need, not just somebody who's close by. And yet you get the same protections as you would heading to somebody's office, the same confidentiality and help. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/AFEW. That's HELP. betterhelp.com/AFEW. As in a few minutes. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that is BetterHelp. HELP. BetterHelp.com/AFEW. And thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's show. Bryan Chaffin is here with us, editor-in-chief of the Mac Observer. If you want to follow him on Twitter, there seems little point. I actually went yesterday to see which of your Twitter accounts people should follow. Dude, it's been 2 months on Geek Tales, and it's been like 3 years on TM O'Brien. Actually, maybe a year and a half.
3 years.
It's like 500-something days.
Yeah, okay. Well,
so a year and a half. Well, yeah, just ignore his Twitter. I mean, I guess if you want to, at Geek Tales would be one thing you could do.
Yes, that's for that's for politics and writing and things that are not tech related.
Yeah, it's a bit like throwing a penny in a wishing well, though. Well, I did something, and that's
Okay, I choose to hear that as hurt. And
why?
Since I'm the one who's listening. I get to decide that.
You're probably so much more healthy for not spending time on Twitter. It doesn't matter how many pictures. It does not matter how many pictures of Ted Cruz I put up as a clown. My life does not get better. I think you're probably wise to spend less time. But
I think that my life, if I was seeing those, and the only reason why you haven't gotten likes from me on those is because I haven't seen them.
Yeah,
my life is improved by it. So yours may not be.
Okay.
By posting them, but mine is by consuming them.
You should see the one I did of Tucker Carlson, by the way. It's great. It's borderline. It's almost like, you remember when Red Skelton stopped being a clown and started painting him?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. It's not nearly that good, but still. Look, here's the problem I have with what you were saying last segment. Mm-hmm. We should be able to talk rationally about this stuff. The part that bothers me is not the fact that Apple shares went down. I'm not a shareholder. The part that bothers me is, as I've said before, I think on this show and on other shows, what macOS Ken mostly is a critical thinking exercise. For the past 16 years, that's pretty much what has been interesting about Apple to me, is the whole thought process and the thinking around it. And what makes me nuts is to see a sell-off after Apple delivers, gob-stopping numbers. And the reason it bothers me is because there seems to be no consideration of everything else that's going on in the world. There seemed to be no consideration of what was actually happening in the supply chain when Wall Street set its expectations. And then when Apple delivers, amazing numbers, and then says afterwards, by the way, it's going to be worse next quarter. And the reason it's going to be worse next quarter is because we still got all these problems out there. Plus, our demand is through the roof. There was a fantastic question that somebody asked yesterday. It was the last one. I think it was Chris Casso, or Queso, depending on who you ask. He said, so you're going to have trouble meeting expectations as far as consumer demand this year, this quarter. How many of these sales do you think are going to happen later? And how many of them are sales where if you miss them in the holiday, you just miss the sale? And Tim Cook was like, yeah, some stuff gets bought as gifts. And so people wanting something under the tree are going to go someplace else. And so we're going to lose those sales. But a lot of the stuff that Apple sells, even during the holiday quarter, is not stuff that's bought as a gift. And so those sales are going to be deferred. People aren't going to go to Huawei tomorrow. People aren't going to go to Xiaomi tomorrow. Nobody's getting a Dell. I mean, some people are getting a Dell, but they are people who are not going to be getting a Mac in the first place. This is still, based on the ideas that we have assigned value to Apple with, based on those same ideas, Apple is as valuable, perhaps more so, because if I go to the store and they don't have saltine brand saltines, but they have Trader Joe's brand saltines, I'll buy Trader Joe's brand saltines because it's a cracker and I don't care. If I'm buying a computer, if I'm buying a phone, if I'm buying any number of high ticket items, that is not just walk into Best Buy and pull the first one off the shelf. I'm hanging around for that, and that to me is what assigns Apple a huge amount of the value that it has. And it gets frustrating to see people go, no, but people are going to buy something else. Because here's the other thing. There's nothing else to buy because the supply chain is as screwed for everybody, more so for everybody besides Apple.
None of that has anything to do with how there's just so much wrong with that, Ken. You were ignoring all of the value added to Apple in the run-up to that announcement. Right? The sell-off doesn't happen in a vacuum. The sell-off happens relative to what happened before the earnings announcement. Now, I mean, if you want to fault Wall Street for anything, fault Wall Street for focusing on this quarter-by-quarter nonsense.
Okay.
This short-term thinking where all, everyone really cares about is what a company just did and then what they're about to do.
Right.
With maybe up to a year from now. Maybe. For Apple, it's usually a quarter.
All right, hold on. I accept your apology. Because that's what we're talking about. I'm talking about the short-sightedness of the whole thing.
Okay,
you keep saying I'm
backing up.
You keep saying I'm faulting
today.
Wall Street. You keep saying
you're starting it from today. You're starting it from there's the announcement and then Wall Street punished Apple.
No,
Wall Street rewarded Apple in anticipation for results that it didn't get. So when it doesn't get those results, it pulls some of that value back off the table.
Okay,
that is a rational position.
I'm not even saying anything about Wall Street, I don't think. I think what I'm actually talking about is investors, although I would put investors in quotes, because I think these are people who I don't even know the best way to put it. You're on a road trip and you're going 60 miles per hour and you're like, great, I'm going 60 miles per hour. That means I'm going to get there in 5 hours. And then the guy looks down and says, actually, we're going to need to stop for gas. And then you get out and start hitchhiking because you didn't get on this train to stop. Get in this car to stop. You got in this train to keep going, right? We're going to keep going. You just need to stop for gas every now and then. There are any number of ways you could look at this. Look, I don't care what happens to Apple shares. The part that I find frustrating is the lack of thought around the whole thing. And I know it's not about thought. It's about money.
That is why I am getting so tense, is that there is a lot of thought that goes into it. And that, again, from my perspective, that thought is rational and it makes sense. And it is layered in logic, even if there's a whole bunch of Wall Street that doesn't understand parts of Apple.